Okay, so for the first topic in Beta 106, first we will try to review what we have mastered and learned about during our Beta 105 class. So during our Beta 105 class, if you would remember, the first half of your Beta 105 was delegated to learning how the body develops and also what are the possible uh, manifestations of the development of the body if the development does not go well. So you also learned about the abnormalities, right? And then in the second half of Beta 105, finally, that is where we learned about histology. So histology is basically the study of the four major types of tissues. And as a review, do you remember the four major types of tissue? So we spent half of the semester for Beta 105 mastering these four basic types of tissues. First, we have the Yes, we have the epithelial tissue. For the epithelial tissue, we said that its primary function is to either line or cover organs or to produce secretions. That's why we have two types of epithelial tissue. We have our lining epithelium and our glandular epithelium. And as we said, in order to function or serve its purpose physiologically, the cells of your lining or glandular epithelium are very closely opposed with one another, right? And then another requirement is for the presence of the basement membrane. And of course, we'd always find this epithelial tissue, especially the lining epithelium, to be um, near any lumen or spaces, naturally occurring spaces within tissues and organs. What's the second one? Of course, we have your connective tissue. And coming from its name, the connective tissue's major role is to connect other types of basic tissues with one another. And it also has a very diverse functionalities. That's why there's a lot of different subtypes for connective tissue. Do you remember what they are? Right? Of course, we have first the boring or the classic connective tissue proper. Remember, we have our dense regular, dense irregular, the loose type. So it depends on whether if there are more cells, then you would have your loose connective tissue. If there are more fibrous components, then you would have your dense connective tissue, right? And then depending on the organization or orientation of these fibers, it will also change its name. And then, aside from this classic or connective tissue proper, you would also have your specialized connective tissues, right? You would have your adipose tissue, which has different types depending on the purpose that it wants to serve. And then you would also have your supportive type of connective tissue. And what are the two major types of supportive connective tissue? Yes, we have the cartilage and the bone. So, of course, we will be talking more about these types of connective tissue and where they can be found in specific organs. Okay, and the last type of basic tissue that we studied in Beta 105 is our nervous tissue. Oh, sorry, before the nervous tissue, actually, we have our muscle tissue. For the muscle tissue, it's one of the most easy to understand and most straightforward type of tissue and easily recognized. It's very direct, no? It only has three major types. You would have your, of course, when you think of muscle, you would think of this would be your skeletal muscle. Is the muscle that actually its primary role is to move the bones of your body or your skeleton. That's why it's named skeletal muscle, di ba? And then, of course, you would also have your smooth muscle, which is usually found lining the organs of your gastrointestinal tract or any organ that is involuntarily controlled. And then, speaking of an involuntarily controlled muscle, the last type of our muscle tissue would be your cardiac muscle, which is um, just found in the coming from its name in the heart, so cardiac muscle. And yes, finally, was what I was saying earlier, we also have our nervous tissue, which is very interesting, and the cells within your nervous tissue, the major cells, which is responsible for the conduct of the impulses, production, and conduct. What are those again? You have our, yes, our neurons, diba? So don't forget those. But it's not only the neurons that are the resident cells of our nervous system. If you would remember, we would also have our supporting cells, diba? Yung mga star shape, diba? We have the astrocytes, the microglia, which become plump, depending if the body necessitates it to react to noxious stimuli or pathogenic substances. So anyway, all of those different tissues, if you have not yet reviewed it, please take the time to review your notes in Beta 105, because finally, um, this semester, we will be focusing on organology, wherein we will be exploring the different basic tissue components that we learned from histology, and where they are located in the specific organs, or which comprise our different organ systems in the body. Okay, so for example, next meeting we will be talking about the musculoskeletal system, and then we'll be talking about the nervous system or cardiovascular, etc. So per body system, it will be composed of your organs, and within these organs, the building blocks, or like the Lego bricks of these organs, will be your four major basic tissues. Okay, so before we studied histology, and as I said earlier, we mastered these four types of tissues in Beta 105. So again, we would have our epithelial tissue, we have our connective tissue, our muscle tissue, and nervous tissue. And now we will be investigating each organ of each body system and trying to see, for example, oh, in the outer part of the lung, what type of basic tissue is the component? Is it the epithelial tissue? And if it's the epithelial tissue, will it have a different name this time around? So those are the things that we will be focusing on this time around. Okay. So first, what is organology? It is basically the study of the structure of an organ and its function. So as what we have been repeatedly saying, even in Beta 105, histology is basically anatomy. Histology is basically physiology visualized. Okay? So for the structure, we have our tissue. And then when we combine these different tissues, or sorry, the examples of this tissue would be your epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous tissue. So these are the components. These are the Lego bricks, right, that we mastered last semester. And then this time around, we will be describing them in the context of the organ. Okay? You see that these several tissues, they cannot function on their own. In order for them to deliver their function and to physiologically exert whatever their function is in the body, they would need the help of one another. So depending on the organ, you would have different combinations of different tissues, and some organs would have a more component of a specific tissue, while some organs would have less of it. So it depends. Okay. So again, for histology, we talked about the building blocks. Okay. We tried our best to become experts in identifying and describing the four different types of basic tissues. While in organology, our goal is to describe the structure and the function of each organ. Okay. So, as an analogy, for example, the histology talks about the building blocks, okay? And In organology, we will be talking about the actual rooms of the houses. For example, in this bedroom, or for example, if this is the organ in the liver, in the right corner, it is made up of glass and metal, right? But in the for example, in the kitchen, there's more wood than there is glass, so something like that. Okay, so we will be architecturally looking at the different subparts and places, layers of your organs, and describing them, identifying what are the building blocks, what type of tissue is found in which specific places. Okay, so but first, before we go to the actual different organ systems, we have to understand how it came to be. What dictated for these different um, basic tissues to go into specific parts or layers or structures of an organ? And the answer is because of the presence of your basic body plan. Okay, so what's the basic body plan? So technically, it is the plan or set of morphological features that is common to many members of animals. And in our case, especially us veterinarians, our focus is usually just for the vertebrates. Of course, for the invertebrates kasi that's for the biologists na, okay? But for us, usually, we would be dealing with the vertebrates, okay? So for the invertebrates, their basic body plan, since their functionalities and their environment where they grow and live and thrive is quite different from the vertebrates, we would see that their form also reflects that, no? So you can see that in some invertebrates, some are asymmetrical, while some would have a radial symmetry, such as this one. This is, I think, a sea anemone, and you can see that the symmetry is like radial information. And this is very different from us. So as humans, do not forget that we are technically animals as well. But anyway, there are similarities with the animals. Okay, so you would have your left and right. You would have your transverse plane, mid sagittal plane, frontal plane, etc. So these basic body plans is already ingrained into the DNA of all of these animals. Okay, even before um, the animal is given birth to, there's already a plan embedded in the individual cells that form the fetus of the animal. Okay, so in our case, again, we will be talking more about the vertebrates, okay? So why is the basic body plan important? So first, we need to follow a hierarchical structure. Of course, we cannot arrive with our organs and our organ system. So the body cannot function if there are no tissues. And tissues cannot be formed if there are no cells. So in the basic body plan, it is embedded in the genetic material of the cells. They will know uh, to which cells they will cluster together, which fibers they will cluster together, which materials they would need to secrete in order to form the four basic types of tissue. And then these four basic types of tissue, it has a plan which type of tissue needs to go over the superficial layers, which type of tissue should go in the deeper layers, what shape should it take, etc., etc. And finally, which specific organs should be grouped together so that it can perform a common function that will serve the life of the animal or a creature that it is serving. Okay? And for the tissue types, um, it helps to identify and classify the different tissue types. Okay, so the basic body plan will tell the specifics as, okay, you're supposed to become an osteocyte in this area because this area needs supportive type of connective tissue support, or this area, it needs to be soft but resilient and flexible. So maybe this area should have more elastic fibers or something like that. Okay, so for the organ structure, it's basically where each type of tissue should be located, because a single organ, it is almost impossible for a single organ to exist or to be formed by a single type of tissue, no? Almost always there is a combination of different types of tissues and cells. And of course, we have our cell and tissue interactions wherein both cellular and molecular mechanisms play a big role in the functionality of the organ. Okay? So, um, hopefully, as we go on through the semester or in the later topics, we will be able to correlate the microscopic structure of an organ with its specific function. For example, organs of the GAT, example, esophagus, stomach or intestine, you'll know that, oh, those are hollow in nature. Why is it so? Because it needs to be able to carry the ingesta or the food that the animal is eating and digesting. Okay? So, what are the key points that play a role in our basic body plan in order to uh, form the organs in the organ system? First, we have our gene regulatory networks or GRNs. Okay, of course, in the references, you would have the exact specific molecule names, but in your case, you don't really have to memorize this or identify these. Maybe when you pursue graduate studies, that's the only time that it will be relevant to you. So for the gene regulatory networks, so for the gene regulatory networks, uh, these are the genes that should be turned on and off at the right time and the right place. It's the one that dictates na parang, for example, okay, in this specific organ, it should have um, three lobes, two in the left, one in the right, or something like that. So these are like basically the recipe of how organs are formed and where specific tissues will be forming and which specific cells will be differentiating in specific layers and structures. Next is the morphological divergence in evolution. This morphological divergence in evolution during the formation of the basic body plan is characterized by a greater differences in the shape and morphology among different species at the earliest and latest stages of development. Actually, other references would call this as the hourglass model. So it says here, for example, for amphibians, reptile or bird, and mammals, you would have different morphological structures of the developing early development of the animal. So, of course, the first stage is very common. It is the formation of the zygote. And usually, the formation of the zygote comes into fruition when the sperm and the ova meet, right? So, um, the fertilized egg looks almost quite the same among different species, but sorry, it doesn't look the same, no, because for some animals you would have the presence of the yolk, but for some animals such as the mammal, we don't really have big amounts of yolk in our eggs, right? But in the middle part of the early development, there is like a convergence of the structures wherein uh, even if the animals are from different species, they would pretty much look the same morphologically. And this is so because the gene regulatory networks, or the combination of the different genes, are so well conserved across species, no? So during these stages of the morula, blastula, and gastrula, um, the network, or the different genes that are calling the shots and telling the cells which way to go and how to differentiate, it is almost the same, okay, among um, the different species. And then, as the early these stages are developing into the later stages, that is when the morphology will become diverse again. That's why it's hourglass. Kasi dito it's varied, and then it will be common again in the middle part, and then it will become different again in the latter part. It makes sense, right? Because in the first part, the egg of different species, or the ova, are very different, because different species would have different ways of reproduction and would have um, different ways of how to mate, or different areas where they actually keep their eggs, right? And then it also makes sense because when the animals are developing, again, the environment and physiological characteristic of the specific animal will also develop. But again, in the middle area, that is where there is a similarity among species, because this is the part wherein your gene regulatory network plays the biggest part. And that's why, if there is a abnormality or something goes wrong during these middle stages of development, it is very detrimental to the animal, because these gene regulatory networks, they are the ones that is dictating where the vital organs or vital components of the animal should go, on how it should develop, so that it will be able to give out its normal physiology and function. And then, so any abnormalities during stages is very detrimental and usually leads to the death of the animal. Okay? So, next we have our signaling centers. This would be your notochord and your primitive node. So, these are actually found in the gastrula stage of your early development. So, for example, the head to tail orientation, or cranial or caudal axis, is actually dictated by your notochord, while the left to right symmetry of the body is dictated by your primitive node. And then in the case of the chick, if you're confused, in some references, they call this primitive node as your Hensen's node. So again, it's named after a person. That's why the first letter of the term is in capital. Okay? So anyway, both the notochord and the primitive node serve as signaling centers which tell all the other cells in the developing embryo where to go and what to eventually develop into. Okay, so without these signaling centers, if there's a problem in these signaling centers, all the organs and the organ system will not know where they should develop and where they should be placed, and what their orientation is relative to the whole body. Okay, so here you can see that the Henson's node dictates which is the left and the right, so the symmetry, okay, lateral symmetry, and then the notochord, which it will eventually develop in the going to the head process, dictates the cranial part from the caudal part. And here you can see that the primitive streak is actually also the area which starts to dictate which cells should eventually go deeper and form a middle layer aside from the top layer. And then, of course, it will also have your bottom layer. So the formation of these three layers, so the topmost layer is actually your ectoderm, the middle layer is your mesoderm, and the most innermost layer is your endoderm. So derm, which means what? What does derm mean? What does it mean when you say, okay, we'll go to the derma because I need to have my skin uh, cleansed or have rejuvenating stuff or spa. So derm means skin because uh, it these layers technically they are like skin-like structures, right? Okay. These germ layers, we have the ectoderm, which will eventually divide or differentiate into your neuroectoderm, which will become your brain and spinal cord. Then we have your surface ectoderm, which will eventually become your skin and related structures. And then you have your mesoderm or middle layer, which will become your paraaxial mesoderm, which will give rise to your spine, muscles, and some parts of the skin. And then you would have your intermediate mesoderm, which will become your kidney and reproductive organs. Then the most lateral part of the mesoderm. So this paraaxial means it is right beside the axis. So the central part of your the midline of your gastrula. And then the intermediate one is next to your paraaxial, and the lateral is the most lateral part. Okay, so later we will be showing photos of this. So it splits into the one that will form the body cavities and the one that will form the circulatory system. And finally, the innermost layer, our endoderm, will give rise to a variety of parts of the body, but mostly the lining, the epithelial lining. So not the whole thing, not the whole layers, no. The epithelial lining of your digestive and respiratory systems, as well as the specialized epithelial tissues of your liver, pancreas, and thyroid glands. So glandular epithelial tissues. Okay. So the origin of body structures is basically all the cells which group into tissues which formed organs, and these organs form the structures in the body. Okay, so all the structures in the body except for the reproductive cells actually came from these three germ layers. Okay, here is a very good and exhaustive map of the three types of germ layers and their fates, so as they mature, and their final organ systems where they belong. As you can see here, the primordial germ cells do not come, are the only type of cells of the body that do not arise from your ecto, meso, or endoderm. Okay, so again, how is it established? So there is a developmental process. So these germ layers, when you can already see them in the embryo, it means you are already looking at the gastrula. So earlier we talked about the formation of the zygote, and then we have the morula, and then the blastula, and then the gastrula. Okay? So here, if you see this structure already and you have the three layers, again, the ecto outside mesomiddle and the endo inner germinal layers or derms, if you already have this, it means you are looking at the gastrula. The notochord is a specialized part of your mesoderm actually, and it's quite specialized because, as we said earlier, it plays a very important role in signaling all the other cellular members of the different germ layers to go where they need to go and to differentiate into the cells that they need to become. Okay, so again, the gene regulatory program controls where and when these genes are expressed, allowing for both small and large changes. So again, the hourglass model of development, hourglass because varied and then common, and then varied again. Okay? Again, we have the morula. So the morula comes from the I think Greek or Latin term for mulberry. So this is actually the mulberry and it resembles the morula. And we have the blastula, which literally means from the term which means sprout, because in the middle part of the morula there is a sprouting of a group of cells. And of course, there is the formation of a coelom or an opening, the blastocele. Okay? And then, eventually, this blastula or blastocyst will eventually form a pocket, which is the gut. So, gut, gastric, gastrula. So, this is your gastrula part. Okay? And among the different species, you will be able to see that there is quite a commonality. It's just that in reptiles or birds, instead of being in a circular spherical structure, it is in a flat structure. That's why the term for at least for the avian is disc, right? We have our blastoderm and blastodisc. Again, this part is common. That's why it is like the waist or the narrowing of the morphology in the middle part of the early developmental stages. In our case, and usually in the context of studying this development, we usually use as an example the chicken embryo. Why? Because it is easily collected and it is easily prepared as opposed to other mammalian type. Okay, so you can easily follow from the early stages until the late stages. Okay? So, in the laboratory, you will be talking more about the details of this uh, chicken embryo because we have a lot of slides of these prepared slides. But first, uh, let's try to think how these embryos actually were placed into the slides. No, what do they look like grossly? No, or using the naked eye. So here I have two photos of the yolk, and this is still in the early stage. So on the left side, you would have your blastoderm. So this is the fertilized version of the yolk, while on the right side, so in the left side, you would see that there is a very clear bullseye pattern, concentric circles. So if there is um, um, the germination or the fertilization, it is termed as your blastoderm. Okay, while if it is not fertilized, we call it your blastodisc. Okay, so this is an unfertilized egg and there is no clear bullseye pattern. Okay, so here you can see you have the location of your blastodisc or blastoderm, depending if it is fertilized or not. And you can see that it is attached. It's a very thin disc-like structure, flat structure, circular structure on top of the yolk. Okay, and as the if the blastoderm develops, you would have the formation of your segmentation cavities. And this is the first part of your, the earliest form of your gastrula. Because here you can already see that you would have your node and your primitive streak. And you would have your area opaca and your area pellucida. Area opaca and area pellucida. So I hope you are able to imagine um, that this area has been carefully lifted out of the top of the egg yolk and placed on slides and then stained with a special stain. So that's why it's color pink. Okay. So here you can see that as it um, develops more, you would have the extension of the notochord as well as the formation of your um, neural plate. And then as the embryo develops more, you would have the actual folding of the cranial part of the embryo. And you can see that there are more and more structures being formed. If before there are only blood islands or clumps of RBCs, now you would have your actual vessels. Okay? And eventually, you would have the formation of the other parts or appendages of the body as well as other sensory organs. Okay? So here, you can see that from a flat, very, very small structure, the embryo will eventually develop into an actual bigger embryo, and there will be twisting and folding of the cranial part as well as the caudal part of the animal. Okay, so usually in the context of embryology, wherein you would always use the story of the chicken embryo, um, a lot of references would tell you about the specific hours with which specific um, parts of the gastrula would develop and eventually form into a neurula. But I personally think that as a veterinarian, when you become a clinician, uh, except maybe if it will be asked in the board exam, then for that time you have to review it. But for now, it's not important to remember the specific hours because depending on the species, the the length of time and the timing of the development will differ. For example, if it's only a chick and the animal is just small, it will take less time to develop. Well, if the animal is an elephant, then maybe if it only takes hours in the chick, it will take days maybe in the elephant, or more hours in order to develop the specific parts. So at least for our course, I'm not really particular in remembering the specific times wherein the specific structures are being formed because it differs depending on the species. Okay, so now let's focus on the formation of the neural structures. So of course, first we will have the formation of our uh, the start of our of our neural growth. Okay, here you can see in this area you would have your neural growth in the ectodermal part, and then you would have thickenings here. Okay, you would have your neural plates. Okay, thickening of the ectoderm, but only in the cranial area. So in the laboratory, you will be learning more about these specific parts. And then eventually the formation of the head and the formation underneath of this structure of the foregut. And here that you can see that first there's only a groove, eventually it will form folds. Okay, and these folds will eventually meet at the center to form a tube. Okay, and the most important thing to remember here is that the merging of the groove of the folds at the center starts from the central area of the body, and the cranial and the caudal parts are usually the last to fuse. That's why when there are abnormalities in the development, usually the developmental abnormalities is related with the failure of closure in the cranial and caudal areas. Okay? Here, you can see that as the embryo becomes older, the formation of the head structures and the brain structures becomes more complicated. It will develop bulges and outpocketings and will actually fold itself, okay? Turn sideways and fold itself and fold more. And here you can see that the different um, subdivisions will subdivide, it will expand, it will have a different name. So again, in the laboratory, in your manual, please take the time to actually examine this and identify the specific names. And also here, you would see this structure. Oh my gosh, it's so cute. It's like a tube-like structure that twisted. This is actually the um, primary uh, start of the formation of the heart. Yes, so you can see that the body plan is slowly but surely being put into play, wherein the parts of the body that should be in the cranial part, such as the brain, is actually in the cranial part of the embryo, and parts of the body that should be at the central part is actually there. Okay, so here you can also see the eventual formation of the upper limbs and the lower limbs. Okay, and as the animal becomes more established, so you would see that some areas will become more and more intricate. Okay, for the endoderm and mesodermal structures, it is best appreciated viewing the cross sections or sagittal sections of the embryo. Okay, so here you can see that from simple layers, especially for the mesoderm will eventually subdivide, and as what we said earlier, it would have your para-axial mesoderm, your intermediate mesoderm, okay, and then your lateral mesoderm, which will actually split into two. And as it splits, and this will hold true in our later lectures, if the tissue splits or forms into another shape, usually it's given another name. Okay, so in this case, it splits and it's given another name, and this splitting will in turn result to a formation of um, different parts of the body. Okay, so here you have your somatophore. So this upper part, for example, of the mesoderm together with the ectoderm will form the body walls, while the lower part of the mesoderm or the splanchnic mesoderm together with the endoderm will form the visceral organs, specifically the heart area as well as the gut. Okay, again, we'll have the body wall folding. As you can see from a flat structure, the embryo overall folded itself until it becomes a tube. And technically, uh, the embryo or our body, we're basically tubes, two tubes, a tube inside a bigger tube. The inner tube is actually what? Our GIT, right? Can you imagine? We're actually basically a very complicated donut because your mouth and actually your anus is essentially a very long and complicated tube, right? And of course, the outer tube would be our body wall, okay? Again, lastly, in the latter parts, you would have the external features, the embryo, and the development of the somite, which will eventually form into the other structures of the body depending on which level of somites it is. For example, the somites located in thoracic area should eventually give rise to the viscera and organs and components of the thoracic area. And again, depending on the species type, you may have a slightly varying number of somites that will develop into specific parts. Okay. Finally, we have the limb and organ development as exemplified by the lymph nodes, and again earlier the cardiac tube and as well as the pharyngeal arches. Okay, here finally you will see that the oldest embryo is already C-shaped and it's not lying flat anymore, and you can see that the different organs are more pronounced. Okay, so again, this is the map of all the different adult fates, and you can trace it to the germ layers that gave rise to them. Okay, so Now that we understood how and why the body knows where to place its specific cells and tissues and organs, and how to group it, and how to orient it, and how to organize it within the body, we're now ready to finally identify the different parts of the embryo that will give rise to specific organs. For example, this part. My gosh, it will eventually turn into, what organ is this? Yes, the liver. And then this part will eventually give rise to the lungs. And this part maybe will eventually give rise to the stomach. And these organs, of course, these gross features that they will develop into would be tackled by your macroscopic anatomy or gross anatomy subjects. But in our case, since we are microscopic anatomy, our goal is to what? Take pieces of these organs, prepare slides, examine them under this view. What is this view? This is actually your subgross view. So I think a lot of you are already familiar with this, and this is what the tissue will look like um, under the naked eye after it has been prepared histologically. And then if we would zoom in, that is when we would see the low magnification of the tissues. And if we zoom in more, we will be able to see, finally characterize the high magnification features. Okay? So that's the system from the zoom out to zooming in, and expect that in the coming topics, we will be talking about the development of the individual organs comprising each organ system. And then after talking about how it develops from the three germ layers, we will be discussing the different features, because some features are best appreciated in the subgross view, well, some features are best appreciated in the low magnification view, while some features are best appreciated in the high magnification view. So usually, if we are gonna be describing the cellular components, we would be needing to become experts in the high magnification view, while for the organization and structure, the low magnification uh, and the sub-gross view is best utilized. So um, this would be, for example, for the superficial layers, the inner layers, etc. Okay? So by next meeting, we will be finally starting to discuss the organ system. Okay? So um, that's all for this lecture. And please do not forget to accomplish the attendance form. Okay? And later at 9 p.m., we will have our first ever quiz. So the Google Forms link will be posted in our Google Classroom. So please make sure that you are notified in the Google Classroom. Okay? So that's all, and thank you.